Hello, friends. I'm here to give you the Happy Valley 70.3 race recap. We're a week post race. I've had a great recovery week as I've pretty much reached the midpoint of my season. So it's been nice to get caught up on some stuff and take a bit of a break from working out, just doing something pretty easy every day, and then my one group ride on Saturday. So that's been nice. So race week, things were going well. We did a typical taper week like we did for Western Mass. So, shorter time, but still had some quick, snappy things in there to keep things going. So taper week was fine. I was having some issues with my bike. It's finicky. SRAM ETAP is very finicky. When it works well, it's fabulous. But just trying to get that shifting dialed perfectly. So I had a last minute kind of panic like I normally do during race week. Luckily, there was a Lake T race on Thursday night. And I had messaged Deb over at Bicycles East, who sponsors that race, and brought my bike to them. And Steve was able to crank on it a bit and get things going pretty good. So that was Thursday night. Friday, I took the bike up and down my street again in the morning, and things were still looking good there. And then my boyfriend and I drove to the race on Friday. So down in State College, Pennsylvania, which is home of Penn State University. So it was, I think we left around 7:30 and we got there around 2:30. We weren't in a rush to get down. Drive down was easy. We stopped for lunch, all that good stuff, and we went right to Packet Pickup. First time race. So it was bigger than Western Mass, but still a first time race. So the village, there was some stuff, but nothing crazy. So, your typical Ironman merch. Then Varlo was there. They're a super cool clothing company, and I've got some friends over there. So I went and said hi to some of my ambassador friends over there. Athletic Brewing, they had and a couple other like local visit state college kind of tents. So yeah, that was Friday. We got there around 2:30, went right to Packet Pickup. Checked in, got my swag. We had already eaten, but they had food trucks there, which was like really nice because I always feel like you're hungry at those things. So they had food trucks there, and they had porta potties that were open. Sometimes at these races, they tie them until race day, but they had them open. So all of that was really nice. Then my boyfriend and I drove to the lake to see where that was. This was a split transition race. So you swam and had T1 in one location. The bike was point to point from T1 to T2, and then T2 was at the location of the finish line downtown, right at Beaver Stadium. So we drove to the lake, kind of scoped things out there, and then we drove the bike course. I've driven parts of a course before, but hearing all that I heard about the hills and everything on this course, I thought it would be smart to drive it and just see what it was about. So luckily my boyfriend was game for that. So we drove the course. And the course was what I had expected. There was a couple good climbs, rolling hills, and I was glad that I did that to get an idea for race day. And then we checked in our hotel. We stayed at a golf course, which was fun. The Toff Trees Golf Resort, I think it's called. My boyfriend and I have been taking golf lessons, so it was perfect for him while I was doing all my race stuff. Like on Saturday, I took a nap and he just went and hit balls. So it worked out really well. But it was about 8 minutes to Beaver Stadium, so it was a great location too, and a quiet enough road. We ran and rode on there for like a few minutes pre-race, like the days prior, and there was no issues there. So yeah, Friday we checked into the hotel. I did a quick run. They had a restaurant there, which was perfect. So we ate, and that was our long Friday. Then Saturday, this wasn't my first time doing a 2 transition race, so I knew Saturday was going to be a lot of logistics. I didn't set an alarm though. I wanted to kind of sleep as much as I needed to, because if you know me well enough, I don't sleep enough. So I wanted to sleep as much as I could. Then we woke up. We went to breakfast. They had like $13 like buffet breakfast at the restaurant, which was awesome, like for everything that you could get. And I like stashed some stuff away for the next morning. So we had breakfast and then my boyfriend and I rode. I had a couple quick intervals to do. And again, we rode right from the hotel. And he just kind of followed along and I circled back to him. So it was fun to be able to do something with him. And then we drove to the swim. I checked my bike in there and did my practice swim. They would only let us swim in this like laned off area, like where people could see you. They had the course set up, but if you swim the course, you would get disqualified. So not worth trying to do that. So I swim in the area with a bunch of people. We went to the end of the area we were allowed and kind of made our own lane line. So one way was going down and the other way was going back, and we kind of had our own thing going. Worked out really good, chatted with some folks there. Then we drove back to Beaver Stadium, which is where T2 was, because we had to drop off our run bag. So a 2 transition race for a 70.3. Everyone kind of does something different. So for them, you always have to drop your bike off the day before. Then we had to drop off our run bag, which was pretty normal, but we didn't have access to the run bag the next morning. I think most of the time you don't, but I think sometimes you can sneak in there and check. So I had to drop off my run bag, which if you pretty much think about it, it's like whatever you would have for a T2 goes in that bag. I still filled my handheld water. I knew it was going to be hot, but again, it's a safety thing for me. I rather have warm water in my hand than be like desperately needing water. So I still filled that up. I learned a lot this week about rain stuff and what to do because there was potential for a lot of storms for race day. So I put my shoes in like gallon Ziploc bags. I couldn't close them all the way, but what I did is I put the like opening, like where your foot goes in, I put that in the bottom of the bag with the toe sticking out, hoping that would protect it the most. And my socks were in my shoes. Everything else, I wasn't that worried about getting wet. Like my hat, whatever, the handheld water, whatever, the nutrition, like it's not gonna ruin it because it's in like the gel packets. So then you put it all in the bag, I cinched it, and then I took a red Solo cup. I like read this on Facebook somewhere. Red Solo cup, you cut the bottom, and then you put the strings of the bag through it and then pull it on top. And that means like the water won't get in if it pours the little opening up top. So I did that. Some folks were tying their bags onto the bike rack, which was another option. Someone had shared a video on how to tie it so you could just like quick release it. I'm not great with knots and things like that in general. So I know when I'm in the race mode, I'm not going to be like trying to undo this knot. So I opted for the gallon Ziploc bags for my shoes, cinched the bag, red Solo cup with the cut up bottom, strings through it, and I laid it on the ground. I laid it on the ground in the bag, like would have my transition set up. So I had my shoes in one side, the hat was kind of on top, my water and my gels next to it. So when I opened that bag, it was like my transition would be on the ground. So that's why I opted for that method, to not have to fuss with a knot and then to be able to like have my transition laid out instead of like hanging jumbled in a bag. My stuff wasn't wet. So I think it worked, but that was kind of like my strategy. So I had to drop that bag off on Saturday as well. Then my boyfriend and I went and got smoothie bowls for lunch, which was awesome because it was a little past lunchtime. And then we were going to dinner early because it was race day. So we did that. I went back to the hotel, took a nap, he played golf, and then we went out to pasta dinner. I love chicken parm before a race. So I had made reservations at a place, but they didn't have chicken parm because I kind of like got panicky about it. But I ended up canceling those and going to a place that had chicken parm. I think we had to wait like 20 minutes for a table, but we got there like a little before 5 o'clock. So we got there pretty early. Obviously a bunch of athletes were there eating. So that was kind of all pre-race. You know, things were fine pre-race. They were just time consuming with the 2 transitions. So that's what I would say with that race. You know, stay in Penn State or State College, like stay at the campus where the finish is. I think that worked out really well, but then you just have to, you know, take in account the 30-minute drive to the lake. So race day, it was a 7 a.m. start. I think I wanted to be at transition at 5 a.m. So we left the hotel at 4:30, which means I got up at 3:30, I had bagels, peanut butter, bananas, all in my room. So I had some breakfast there. My boyfriend decided to drive me to the swim start, which ended up not being the best option for him, but it was nice for me in the morning not to have to deal with a shuttle from State College to the swim. So he drove me, and then I kind of had all my stuff in the car and didn't have to worry about like packing stuff and carrying it all on the bus. So he drove me there. We got there right around 5. It was a bit of a walk from where we had to park to transition, like nothing crazy, but we weren't like on top of transition. I set all my stuff up, chatted with some friends, brought my stuff back to the car, and then my boyfriend came back with me where I checked everything again and put on my wetsuit and kind of waited for the swim start. The swim was 1 loop clockwise. Water was warm, just barely wetsuit legal. So that was good. People were getting in the water and kind of getting themselves wet prior to swim start. I'm not sure if that it was allowed or people were just sneaking in and doing it. It didn't seem like anyone got in trouble, but a couple of times they're like, okay, everyone clear the water. We need to get ready for the race. Um, I'm at this point of my triathlon career, I'm pretty comfortable with a lake swim. So I wasn't too worried about getting in the water, especially with the water being warm. I wasn't worried about shock or anything like that. So I didn't bother to like try to break through everything and get in the water. But again, like I think if you needed to like dunk your head before you started for that confidence, it seemed like you were able to do that. Lined up for the swim. My swim was good. Like I was by myself a lot of the time. I always find in like 1 loop swims with turn buoys, those can get a little dicey. And they did. There was this one girl that I kept like hitting, and we were both kind of being stubborn and like wouldn't move. Um, but after the turn buoy, I got away from her. The next turn buoy, I was near her again, but then I think I sighted a bit better. Going back into shore, she was like drifting a little, so I finally got away from her. Nothing bad. I mean, we're both just kind of doing our own thing, holding our line. So swim overall, I was quite happy with it. I took a peek at my watch at about the halfway point, like when the buoys change colors like they do in Ironman. And I was clicking along good. So I think for a lake swim, no kind of downstream effects and things like that, I was very happy with my time. I felt in control the whole time, felt consistent. Um, then we were out and about. They had wetsuit strippers there, which isn't normal for a 70.3 and full as they do. But excuse me, I chose just to take off my own wetsuit. Typical bit of a run to transition, hopped on my bike, and we were off. The bike started like in the park. We did this like quick out and back, and the mountain line was quite narrow, which a lot of people were talking about potentially being an issue. Luckily, with a decent swim time, there weren't too many issues going on. But I did read some stuff on Facebook. Narrow line, bikes going both ways, people struggling to clip in, things like that. It is what it is, right? Like I think they did the best that they could with the space that they had. And evidently they needed that little out and back to get some mileage. So, something to keep in mind, kind of get you in your own space, be cautious of others. It's just kind of having awareness. And horses, all the time we talk about like ring awareness when you're in classes with groups of people. Same kind of thing on the bike, right? Just having awareness of folks around you and doing the best you can. But we all had to deal with the small mountain. So it was an out and back, and then we were on the roads. The course was described as rolling. I think that's up to debate depending on who you talk to. First part of the course was fast, which was nice for me. I felt like I could get my groove, get my spot, pass the people that I needed to, get in the group that I needed to, and kind of find my flow. So the first part was quite fast, and then we got into some rolling hills. The first climb, I think was like 30-ish miles, was like a bigger climb. There was like a couple good switchback turns, but mile like 39-40 was like the big climb that everyone talked about. As far as the bike goes, so the road surfaces, it's like the nicest 56 miles of pavement you will ever ride. At least I have ever ridden. I've ridden a lot in New England, and I've traveled a lot for 70.3s. the nicest pavement. I mean, very, very few spots where they like painted orange warning you about something. And even then, it was like one little spot that you could easily go either side of. Pavement, super nice. I thought the roads were pretty quiet and they were doing a good job managing traffic. It did get a little busy as we were getting closer to Penn State. But it was busy because there was lines of traffic. I didn't feel like too many people were trying to pass. Now, put a couple thousand people out over a 56-mile bike course. Of course, you're going to hear stories of someone getting cut off and things like that. Fortunately, it doesn't sound like anything too awful happened. Again, you need bike awareness, like you're riding on open roads. Yes, some roads are coned off in sections for you, but some roads you're riding on bigger shoulders. A lot of these are quiet roads. You're like in Amish country. I didn't see any horse and buggies. I heard that maybe they go to church every other Sunday and we hit a Sunday they weren't going to church. But there were a lot of folks in the Amish community cheering us on, which was so much fun. A lot of great support on the bike course. So yeah, overall, I felt like, traffic is kind of like what you would expect. You still have to have awareness. Pavement, awesome, best pavement you'll ever ride. And you need to like hills if you want to do this course. If you're in the New England area like I am, I mean, I can't go on an hour ride from my house without climbing almost 1,000 feet. So I'm used to that, but I understand that's not the case for folks living in different states or folks that maybe are in a bit of a flatter part of Connecticut. But yeah, some rolling hills. There's that one climb. Again, I would have to look at the file to see like exactly what mile it was at. But then like 39-ish to 41 was like the bigger kind of long drag of a climb. I didn't think it was anything crazy steep, but it was like a grind for a couple miles. It's comparable to that Greenville climb in Western Mass. Again, if you're in Connecticut and you ride bikes, you've probably ridden out there. It's comparable to that climb, just much longer. I think it was close to 2 miles is what people were saying. Again, I would have to go on the file and like map it out, but it was longer than a mile. So of course, that was the 30 minutes of the race. It was raining for me, was that climb and that descent. That descent had a speed trap. This is my third time doing that in Ironman racing, where there's a kind of a technical downhill. And so they put a timing mat at the front and at the end, 25-mile-per-hour zone. This one, they said, don't pass, no aero bars. I don't think they were monitoring that really, like they were monitoring the 25 miles per hour. So if your average speed is over 25 miles per hour between those two timing mats, you are disqualified. And people complain about it, but Ironman takes it seriously. The rules for a reason. It's for the safety of us athletes. The reason this was a speed zone was because there was some kind of switchbacky turns. And I'm quite glad there was a speed zone because it was raining for me during that descent. And while I'm comfortable enough, right, riding in the rain, it's still not like the best feeling. Downhill, tight turns, and you've got other folks around you that you don't know their skill level too. So I am all for the speed traps. I'm happy to start seeing them more and more in Ironman racing. I think, it's fair for everyone. There's a timing mats. I don't think the race is going to be won on that descent. So, but overall, at the bike course, I felt pretty good. Like I said, that first part, I definitely got my spot, got on the rhythm, the climb started. I just kept steady on the climbs. There's folks on road bikes passing me, but I knew once we got to the downhills and the flats, I would probably catch back up to them. And I just knew I wasn't going to win on the climbs. I could blow a match and blow up on a climb, but I knew I wasn't going to win on a climb. So I kept trying to tell myself that. And sure enough, the second we got back into town on the flats, I passed all the people on the road bikes that had passed me on the climb. So, yeah, that was that. I felt pretty good on the bike. I started to get some leg twinges near the end. I've had a pretty tight right hamstring. Haven't noticed it in training, but past 2 races, when I'm hammering on the bike, I start feeling it. Luckily, it hasn't affected my run. Something that's in the back of the mind to look a little bit into and see if that persists when I start getting into my gravel and mountain biking more. But luckily, hasn't affected anything. So that was the bike. Good. I think I was 3rd age group, which I was happy with. So yeah, solid bike. Some climbing, some rain. got back down to State College and off on the run. I didn't see Oye when I got off the bike, and I was like, "Well, maybe I missed him, but we have a 2-loop run, so I'm gonna see him." Um, so I was like, "Oh, bummer, like, I wanna know where I'm at in my age group," knowing, if I kind of kept my act together, I could probably do decent here. Um, but I also knew there was, like, a really strong tri club in that area, Yoder Performance, so I was like, "Oh, maybe they have a lot of girls here." Trying to get last minute Finland spots or something. Finland is 70.3 world, so this was the last weekend to qualify for that. I'm recording this on July 9th. This was Muscle Man today. This was the first weekend to qualify for next year. So there was a lot of Yoder girls racing today to get those New Zealand slots. But yeah, so I wanted to know where I was in my age group, but I didn't see Oye, and I was like, huh, maybe I just missed him. Whatever, maybe he's at a run spot. But anyways, that's a little side note. We'll get into that. Um, the run was 2 loops through the Penn State campus. So you started off downhill, then you kind of climbed back up to a road. It was just a lot of twists and turns. Cool part was like if you paid attention, you were going by some cool monuments of the campus. We like ran through this kind of building with this open air space. Um, we ran by the Nittany Lion, like some kind of cool, like if you're a Penn State person, we are Penn State, one of those people. It was really cool, right? So, but I appreciated kind of like the historicness of Penn State and running through that, but it was quite hard to get into a rhythm. I got to the first aid station, they had no ice, and I was like, oh my God, if none of these aid stations have ice, like I don't know how I'm gonna make it through. It was humid, 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 humid. Luckily the next aid stations had ice. I couldn't remember if it was the first two that didn't or just the first one. But I remember when I was like, "Ice," and someone's like, "Oh, yeah," at the end, I was like, "Thank God," and I ran up to the woman, I was like, "You finally have ice." I was just so happy to get some ice. Um, so, yeah, so that was the run, 2 loops, didn't see Oye, didn't see Oye, didn't see Oye, and I was like, "What the heck?" I was convinced that he had, like, fallen asleep because he, like, didn't get a good night's sleep, and we had to get up early, and he was driving me all around. And I was like, maybe he just fell asleep in the car and it might go to his alarm. And I was like, okay, second loop, I'm gonna see Oye. Didn't see Oye. And the run was just becoming like not becoming. The whole run for me was just kind of like a mental grind. I felt like I couldn't get into a rhythm. It was hot and it was just like it was hard. It was a grind. But 2 loops, I knew what to expect for the first loop and that like one front in front of the other mentality. I ran through all the aid stations. I didn't walk any of the hills or anything. The hills weren't too steep. They were just kind of like getting you back up somewhere, like from road level back onto campus or something. But some were kind of longer where like some folks were walking, but I was like, let me just slow down at the aid stations, get water in, ice down the kit and the hat, stayed on top of my nutrition and kept going. I didn't see Oye the whole time. So then the cool thing about this race though is you finish in Beaver Stadium, which is their football stadium. So like you run through this tunnel and you're out in the stadium. And it's kind of cool. I mean, it's more or less empty, but it's really cool just to kind of be in there. And they didn't have a red carpet, so it was turf, but they had like painted Iron Man's symbols on it. Did my full send if you saw the pictures. And there I thought I heard Oye cheering for me. And I was like, okay, he's here. And I looked, like you can see me look in the video, but of course, like there's kind of people in the stands. Your spectators couldn't be on the field, which is kind of a bummer. So you're kind of just like finishing in the chute by yourself. And there was really no one in front of me or behind me, but there were spectators like to the left of us. So yeah, I finished I ran sub 2, which is always kind of like my mark. My run wasn't as good as Springfield, but I think like the dynamics of the course, it was just a little harder to get into the flow with all the twists and turns, and it was a lot more humid, and it was just kind of a grind for me. So I was proud of myself for my time with like kind of how mentally tough that run was for me. And overall, I think I was 5:32, which for I think like a hillier course on a humid day, I was quite pleased with. So that landed me 5th age group, and I want to say something like 39th overall female. So I was really proud with that result. You walk out, they give you ice cream from their creamery in these little cups. And I thought, oh yeah. And I was like, before I could even ask what happened was because we drove to the swim with a bunch of other people, they got stuck in traffic for 3 hours trying to leave the park. So by the time he got back to State College, I was off the bike and he was trying to find me on the run, but then he was worried because I was almost done that he was gonna miss the finish. So he's trying to find me a bit on the run, and then he just went back to the stadium because he wanted to be sure to grab a finish line photo. So he was super bummed. And of course, I wasn't mad. I mean, what can you do? Like, super crummy. So I think a lot of folks are going to have feedback about that for the race, but I would say if you do this race and they still allow you to drive to the swim start, I wouldn't. I would take the shuttle so your spectator can get back on the shuttle. Because what happened was they let all the shuttles leave first, and then they started leaving the cars, and the people got there the latest got to leave first. So it was a whole mess, and people were really upset. And even like people in relays couldn't get back to their like bikers in time. It was a little messy. So luckily, like it didn't affect my race because I wasn't on a relay or anything. But oh yeah, you saw me at the swim start and swim finish, and then not again to the finish line finish. So that was that. All good. You know, maybe it was good I didn't know my placing, so I would keep chugging along, knowing the unexpected, or not knowing, right? Like just being in the unexpected realm. But yeah, so finished, and then of course it started raining again. So we were close enough to the hotel that I went back there and showered and made sure like my fifth place still held to return for awards. So I think I finished around 1 something and awards weren't till 4:30. So I got all my bags and bikes and stuff in the rain. We loaded it up. We were wet mops. We went back to the hotel and showered. And then we went back for awards at 4:30. It was kind of raining on and off for awards, but I got my award and scooted on out of there. Again, I'm guessing I probably could have gotten a Finland spot if I wanted, but I've decided to do Xterra Worlds in Italy. So that was the race. We went out to a brewery for dinner and then to the creamery, which is like the thing everyone tells you to do in Penn State. It's like the Berkeley Creamery or something like that. But it's like the creamery in Penn State. So we went to dinner and I got ice cream there and we went to bed early. And then Monday we went to a coffee shop and we were on the road back to Connecticut. So again, overall race, I think for a racer, I enjoyed it. It was a nice swim, great pavement on the bike. If you like hills, it was there. Running around Penn State, 2 loops. I mean, there was twists and turns, but you know, you're always with folks, which I like on the run, and you get to finish in the stadium, which is kind of cool. I think they did a really good job for the first time race. Obviously, that little snafu at T1, lesson learned. And then the other thing was the athlete food. I don't know if I would have gotten any, but like I just thought we got the ice cream and that was it. But you had to go like you like left the stadium and you had to go like up these stairs into Athlete Village, and that's where they had the athlete food. I didn't know that. I didn't get anything, but again, I don't know if I would have anyways. You know, they gave you waters and Gatorades at the finish line, and I had my ice cream, 2 ice creams post race. So yeah, that was Happy Valley 70.3. Overall, really happy with that. I wanted to do my 2 70-point phase early in the season, just to have some time to do some other stuff in the back half of the season. So I'll be heading up to Farm to Fork next weekend in Vermont. So that's like I'm doing like the 69-mile road ride. We've got Macedonia gravel grinder at the end of July. Then I'm doing a 12 hours of Great Glen. It's like a mountain bike race up in New Hampshire. Then D2R2, that will cover August, maybe a couple cross races, end of August into September, and then September 3rd, Xterra Worlds. And then I'll be doing cross after that, a lot of cross. So yeah, that's kind of like the back half of my season, getting off the road, 1 triathlon left. Maybe I'll hop into something local, but my 2 big tries are behind me. So any questions about Happy Valley, let me know. My nutrition was the same for Western Mass. So if you listen to that video, same nutrition plan. If you haven't, go back and do it. If you don't want to and you want to message me, I can kind of tell you what I did. The one thing I'm going to start looking into more is getting some more carbs in my liquid nutrition. So I'm using Precision Hydration right now for race day. They're 1,000 packs. But I got their drink mix that has like 60 grams of carbs, and I forget how many grams of sodium per serving. So I'm going to start messing with that a little bit to see if that will give me a little more edge that I'm looking for. And again, continue to just improve my feelings on the run. What I'm doing right now is working. I think it can be better. So I'm going to be playing with that drink mix for the second half of the season. So yeah, any questions on race nutrition, let me know. But it was a fun time, good driving distance from Connecticut, and just kind of fun to be in Penn State and feel those vibes. All right, everyone, have a good night.